morning, everybody. I thought I would give some commentary. I didn't. Nothing is planned right now. Everything right now is extemporaneous. So, just warning ahead of time. I might have a lot of ums and oohs and pauses, and I don't have time to go back and edit my videos. So it just is what it is. If you want to take it, you can. If you don't, you don't. Sorry about that. So, in any event, yesterday I watched a little bit of this ceremony that they had opening the American embassy in Jerusalem, and there's all kinds of reactions and reflections upon this that we see from all different types of people. And so I just wanted to put in my own 2 cents, which I try to be a little bit of an iconoclast, not on purpose, just that's who I am. I'm not exactly fitting it into any particular bubble. I mean, I do support President Trump. I did vote for him. He was not my first choice. I would have much rather seen Ted Cruz. And I've said this many times, it's really not much for me to reflect again and again, to just regurgitate the same things again and again about Donald Trump. I'm pretty happy with the way he's conducting himself. Now, a lot of people know that I'm not exactly a fan of Zionism. But people assume that it's just because, people just assume I'm just blindly following some Rebbe, and that's why I'm not a fan of Zionism, and that just whatever the Rebbe says, that's what I do. Now, first of all, people who think that don't understand the nuance and the difference between the Hungarian Hasidim. I would even hesitate to call the Hungarian Hasidim. I would certainly hesitate to identify myself as a Chassid. I don't like that idea of, that this concept that you see in other Hasidic groups, particularly by the Russian Hasidim. Those are the ones you could properly call Hasidim, I guess, or the Russian Hasidim. The Hungarians are Hasidish. It's just like, sometimes you hear people say, well, he's Jewish or something, But the difference is that, to me, the Hungarian approach, more or less, is a much healthier approach. That they take on the Hasidic customs, they appreciate the Hasidic spirituality, but there is not this, the veneration of the Rebbes does not get to cultish levels the way it does by the Russian Hasidim. And it's not only Lubavitch, it's the same thing in New Square, it's the same thing in Karlin Stolin. The difference is that, and even to a certain extent, Breslov, what I prefer, I really have to sit down one day and just make a video simply translating this interview. I think it was Moment Magazine, I don't remember. It was one of these magazines, a Yiddish magazine, where they had an interview with Rabbi Yitzchak Leibovich, the Woodridger Rov. And what a clear ideology of Judaism that Rabbi Leibovich has. It's something that a lot of people should really hear, because he's calling out this cult mentality for what it is, really, and saying, no, we can appreciate everything from everyone. We don't have to. That's part of the cult systems is the exclusion. I mean, I know, really serious Satmar Rabbanim who will learn halacha from poskim that politically they might not see eye to eye with. And that's a story Rabbi Jeffrey Siegel tells, how he was a Rav and he was having issues poskening on something Maris Hilchos Nida, and he goes to a Dayan, whether a Nitra Dayan or some other Hungarian Dayan, and he said, who are you? The Dayan said to him, how is it? Are you someone who can paskin on this? He said, yeah, I have shimush from so-and-so. He said, okay, good. So then, like, without thinking, he mentioned a psak from Rav Ovadia Yosef, and then he got a little scared because, Rav Ovadia Yosef was the chief rabbi of Israel. So, now he's going to get, yelled at for quoting a Zionist. They're going to throw him out. And then the Dayan said, yeah, I know that. I was considering that as well. And so it's not as close-minded as people on the outside of these communities think, whether it's what they think, or whether it's propaganda that people are spreading against these communities, whatever it is. But the reason I'm saying all this is that I'm saying my own das. I'm not saying, which is das balabatim. I'm just a balabatashid. I work as a rabbi. Doesn't mean I'm a posek, doesn't mean I'm any kind of authority. I'm just sharing with you all, especially now I have a job, I could say, I have a full-time job, I could say a balabatish, even though I'm not working as a Klei Kodesh, I'm working essentially as a galach, but it is what it is. I'm very happy with my new job, Baruch Hashem. It's very tzugapast for me. But it's very fitting for me. But let's move on from this. I'm thankful to God that I have a dream job, and I wish the same for everybody else, that you should find happiness in whatever you're doing, and sipuk and simchas achayim. You should find satisfaction and joy in life in whatever you're doing. So a lot of people have been commenting about this, the move of the embassy to Jerusalem. So I'm going to just put in my 2 cents. A lot of things I think I'm probably going to offend everybody with what I'm saying, because my views are my own, which are different than other people. What I would say myself is that I don't like to pigeonhole myself and openly identify my politics, but at this very moment, I'm not going to say this is my whole life or whatever, but I would say more or less and I've said this for a while, and I think, a lot of people say, well, I know Moshe Weinberger, he likes to keep quiet about his ideas on these subjects because it's so controversial, and he's afraid he's going to lose his job and stuff like that. But essentially, I would say I am anti-Zionist and pro-Israel. And when I say pro-Israel, I mean pro-Israel kind of in the way that Rabbi Yosher Meza says. I'm pro-Israel the same way I'm pro-England or pro-France or pro-Japan or South Korea. These are countries that we don't always see eye to eye on everything, but these are our allies as Americans. I'm an American. Not only I'm an American citizen by accident of birth. Just like I always say, if I wasn't born Jewish, I would want to become a Ger Tzedek. If I wasn't born American, I would probably seek out, because of the ideology of America, the ideology of the Constitution, and so forth, I would seek out American citizenship. I absolutely love the idea of America, particularly as it was founded. Now, that doesn't mean that any of the anachronisms are what, a lot of people, they're so close-minded, particularly people on the left who are not liberal. They call themselves liberal, but it's really ironic. And they're not progressive either, they're regressive. And and really they embrace a lot of the things that they claim to hate more than they like to admit. And a lot of these things are quite ironic. And that's why I use the term the left, because it means something, because whatever that means, that's what it means. I don't like this term liberal to describe those people. I'm more liberal than anyone who I know who's really on the left. Now, there are liberal people on the left, but they're becoming fewer and fewer today. And certainly are not being represented by their representatives that they vote for. And so that's why a lot of them are changing their minds about voting for these people. That's one of the reasons why Donald Trump, who is truly a liberal person, is probably one of the most liberal presidents that we've had in a long time on either side. But he's someone who's truly liberal, and he's truly open-minded about, considering different things, whatever's in the best interest of America, and returning, power back to the people where it belongs. But not, and people were saying he's a populist, this and that, but he's not really so much of a populist, even though there is a rise of populism, which is problematic. Well, I don't have all day. I'm on my way to work. I only have a limited amount of time to talk about this, so let's not get sidetracked, because we'll want to talk about Jerusalem. And when I say this, what I mean is that any support I have for Israel has nothing to do with me being Jewish, because I don't agree with the ideology of the State of Israel on several levels. And everything they disagree with the ideology of the State of Israel is because of how they are different than the ideology of America. This is just me personally, even with my hat, my beard, and payas. I am committed to the essential liberal ideas of the founding of the United States of America, the Jeffersonian ideals of this country. And first and foremost, freedom of religion, which Israel has religious tolerance, but not religious freedom in the way that America has. It's a different approach. I'm not saying that it's evil because they have a different approach to religious freedom. I'm just saying this is not my approach. My approach is much more Jeffersonian from the government standpoint. Now, why is that? How is that the case? Well, me being so religious, wouldn't I want? And I'll tell you, I'm in my job. Probably the busiest time of the year is right now, starting tonight, tomorrow, and really, it's been the work that is involved in it has started before I started the job. So I kind of didn't have much of the brunt that Mirz Hashem will have next year. Is Ramadan. Today is Rosh Chodesh Sivan, and the Muslim months follow generally the Jewish months. Although today is the first day of our month of Sivan, but the Ramadan this year is starting most likely tomorrow, possibly Thursday. It's not exactly clear. They still have to announce Mekudesh, the way that whatever they might say, but we don't have a Sanhedrin. That's why we have a set calendar. Their system is a little bit different. I know today is going to be the Moiled, so that's more or less, at some point, I think tonight, tomorrow, whatever, they're going to announce the start of Ramadan. And I had the opportunity in the institution, one of the institutions where I work, to address the Muslim community there and to wish them Ramadan Kareem, to wish it and so forth. And I said to them, the aspect of living in a pluralistic society means that you're making a choice. If you, and this was something I mentioned that I'd read in some kind of article somewhere, I don't remember exactly where. You know, if you live in Saudi Arabia or Indonesia or one of these countries where everybody's keeping Ramadan, where they even, you know, basically sleep all day and work at night during Ramadan, it's very easy to fast on Ramadan, and if being so easy, it might not be very meaningful. When you live in a pluralistic society like America, you make a choice. I'm part of a minority, and I'm not going to be just doing what the majority does just because it's easy. I'm going to stand up for who I am and what I believe in. The same thing. I have Yantiv next week. And I'm making even though to me as an Orthodox Jew it should seem just so obvious, I'm going to keep Yantiv. It's not even a question, but I'm taking, you know, I have to take off vacation days and so forth. It's not so simple, but this is my religion, and that's how it is, and I have to follow my religion. And so Shavuos, I have to take off Sunday and Monday from work, and that's it. Today's primary day here. And essentially, you know, that's what we're dealing with. All of this being said, you know, living in a pluralistic society means that the choices that we make become all the more meaningful because we take self-responsibility. And so when you live in a country like Israel, and not only that, but it becomes more meaningful and it becomes more real and it becomes more sincere. Everything, I think, is more positive in accordance with the way that America was founded vis-a-vis religion. It's the same thing. I've said this many times, but it's worth repeating. The same way how the free market brings out the best in business and really self-regulates if it's a truly free market, and how socialism just breeds corruption because human beings are in a fallen state. I don't want to sound too Christian like that, but it's true. I mean, it's a Jewish idea as well. They didn't get that from nowhere. Because of human nature, you know, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and so therefore the nature of the free market is one that self-regulates, and so too the nature of the Jeffersonian approach to religious freedom breeds a level of freedom that essentially rescues people from religious corruption, because you have a choice. Anybody in America can open a church, a synagogue, a mosque, and call it what they will and try to get people to come And the government can have no say in that. And we have freedom of association. So, I, as an Orthodox Jew, could say, well, your synagogue is not the synagogue that I would go to because I'm Orthodox and you just claim you're Jewish. You're not even Jewish by my standards, perhaps. Or maybe you are Jewish, but your religion is heretical by my standards, and that's fine. You're free to do that. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's America, and that's beautiful, as opposed to most other countries in the world that I know of, where we don't have the wall of separation between church and state in the way that Jefferson meant it, not the way that now people are trying to push it to try to turn America into a country like France or Turkey or Cuba or wherever, where North Korea, where you cannot have any interaction between church and state. That's not what he meant by the separation of church and state, by the wall of separation of church and state. The wall of separation of church and state means that the state stays out of the church business. Not that the churches stay out of the state business, because churches are people. Corporations are people. They're groups of people, and their freedom of association can give them power as a group. That's what people talk about, block voting or whatever, but it is what it is. I mean, that's what political parties are, block voting, and political parties go out of their way to try to, bring together, get a particular vote, a particular religious vote, do this or that. Let's put that aside for a moment. So that's why, and so even though I have a religious devotion, let's get back to the Israel issue. I have a religious devotion to the Holy Land. Now, perhaps my approach to the Holy Land is different than others. I have a particularly Mishnaic approach to the holiness of the Holy Land, and that is that there are different laws that apply to the Holy Land and apply to other lands. The Mishnah says, Caleb, it says, Eretz Fel Kedoshim Na'Kedusha She'esim V'Viyad Misham Shtei Alechem V'Oimer V'Shtei Alechem. Mishnah says that the Holy Land is holier than every other land, because from there you can bring the Omer and the offering and the 2 loaves of bread offering for on Shavuos and Pentecost, and that's what means the Holy Land. Excuse me, that there are laws that apply to the Holy Land that don't apply to other lands, and that's all it means. We have Meiser and Truma and all these things that apply to produce going to the Holy Land that don't apply to other lands. All the other issues that people try to attribute are cute and nice, and that's true really with all kinds of things that we do, and that's something that really, in general, it's the same thing. We have our religious creativity, which I think the Torah approves of. I don't think it's wrong, but it has to be understood, when and where. Yes, we have a day like Pesach Shake, and tzaddikim have a minhag to sit and eat matzah, maybe make a suda, maybe sing some smiras, and some tzaddikim even they put on a shtreimel and a white bekisha, and they conduct a whole tish, and have big kavanas and everything. You can do that really any time of the year. It's not really an inherent. It sounds heretical for me to say this. It's not something inherent in that day. It's something that the lesson of that day we can learn and grow with, as opposed to mitzvah deraisa of the Pesach Seder, when there are certain things that are absolutely 100% required, and there are other things that maybe yes, maybe no, and that's and we work with which is fine. That's beautiful. So, want to sing these mirrors on Pesach. It's very nice, and I do those things too. But sometimes people their priorities are messed up. They believe that that's all there is. And they put the wagon before the horse. Let's set that aside for now. But I think that's really the issue that we have here with Israel also. People forget what's essential and focus on little things and make a whole theology out of something quite minor and create a whole new religion. They'll take one, which is something that you find, and I respect the religious freedom of people to do such things, and I not only respect it, but I fight to protect it. But that being said, essentially, from a theological standpoint, I mean, I can argue back and forth, but even if I disagree, I'm going to try to defend types of questions we have to focus on. And so looking at the reactions on every side about the move of the American embassy to Jerusalem, essentially what I find is that everybody's wrong. It's like the Satmar Rebbe used to say, and again, I'm not saying this because the Satmar Rebbe said it, I'm saying because I agree with it and it makes sense. Again, I'm not blindly following a Hasidic Rebbe. It's not like how the Lubavitchers and the Squarers, bless them, let them do that. That's fine for them. It just doesn't work for me. I don't hate someone who I disagree with, or not only, it's not that I disagree with it. I support you doing that for you. It's just not what works for me. But what the Satmar Rebbe says is that, he said every Rebbe thinks he's right, and all other Rebbes are wrong, and only he's right. So Satmar Rebbe said, I agree everybody else is wrong, but I'm also wrong. It's a very healthy and intelligent attitude. We're all wrong. We're all human beings. We are all, having something, not saying, obviously there's certain Ikrei Emunah, there's certain things that be the closest thing that you could call in Judaism to dogma. I would say, I personally feel that the 13 Animaments are essentially the dogmas of Judaism. That's what my Rebbeim taught, what Rebbe Berlitsky, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha, taught, is that essentially the Gimel Ikrim are the dogmas of our faith, even though, as he pointed out, there are different opinions as to, what are our dogmas. Not to say that there's different opinions as to what are our beliefs, but what are our dogmas. Alright, I'm almost to work. I don't really have time to go further on this, but people turn things that are not essential into and treat them like dogmas, and that's something we see. That's why there are so many different denominations of Christianity, is because they'll see one statement and say, well, one verse in the Bible, and make a whole theology out of it, which is fine for them. It's just not what works for me. So, but that's what I see is the problem going on here. It's like, it goes back to what Rabbi Bart Sadok always says about religious extremism, of how people become obsessed, and it's not any particular group. It's an approach. It's almost like a mental illness. It's like one of my colleagues here is a Eastern Orthodox Christian priest, and he always says that people who are religiously obsessed tends to be a symptom of mental illness, and when they overcome that is when they become spiritually healthy. The less obsessed they are with religion, the more healthy they are spiritually. And that's something I struggle with. I don't know if I exactly how much I agree with that, how much I don't agree with that, but that's how it is. And this obsession that we see, people who are saying, wow, this is the fulfillment of prophecy. Well, where does it say anywhere in the Bible that America has to recognize Jerusalem as the capital? And I'm totally supportive of if President Trump thinks it's in the interest of America to recognize Jerusalem as the capital, I'm totally cool with that. I don't have any problem with that. I have a problem with it having something to do with Jewish, because Jewish means different things to different people. And so for certain Jewish people, that's what it means. And for other Jewish people, even very religious people, they have a different approach, My approach to Jerusalem is like my approach to the Holy Land, that the holiness of Jerusalem is that there are certain laws that apply to Jerusalem that don't apply to any other city. It doesn't mean that there's any political meaning to it or anything like that, even if in ancient times there was a political meaning to it. In modern times, I don't know how appropriate that is. All right, I don't have time to continue. I'm at work already. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment all the best.